Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and awesome on this beautiful Friday. Welcome to our awesome VFX chat powered by Better Youth, the LA Film School, and of course, Skydance. I am Shonda Pierce, and I am a part of the LA Film School events team. And I'm actually here to introduce our wonderful student moderator today. Andre Vasilevich is an aspiring film director and producer, and he's currently a Los Angeles Film School student focusing on film production. Andre has a music background and is bringing his virtual production slash VFX to his sets and films. He's worked with many CGI artists and studios, and he's released multiple short films, commercials, and music videos. He loves storytelling and he's passionate about filmmaking. So everyone, please help me welcome our awesome student moderator, Andre Vasilevich.
Hello, hello. It's great to be here. Thank you, Shanda. I hope everybody's doing great tonight, this evening. Please let us know how you feel in the chat. So now, before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that we have guests that are watching us on YouTube, and we have our special guest here. But before we get started, I just wanted to thank our partners at Better Youth. Better Youth is an organization that validates young people by developing life skills through mentoring and media arts training, specifically on foster and former foster, homeless, and low-income youth. Let's give it up for Better Youth. Hooray! We also wanted to give a love to Skydance, who both work closely with Better Youth through their focus on hands-on mentorship. These awesome organizations are focused on the collective impact for helping to diversify the entertainment and tech industries. Yeah, sounds great. All right. Let me remind you that this is going to be a roundtable conversation, and everybody, whoever have a question, please let us know in the chat. We'll make sure we can answer your question. And without further ado, I wanted to represent our special guest, Kathy Chasen-Hay. As a Senior Vice President of Visual Effects for Skydance Media, Kathy is responsible for overseeing the VFX on all Skydance films and television series. She also works closely with development and physical production by breaking down and figuring out the methodology of the visual effects on a given film and or television series. She hires the VFX teams and collaborates with the filmmakers and teams on schedules, hiring, vendor selection, budgets, and VFX strategies throughout production. Prior to joining Skydance, Kathy was the VFX producer for Paramount release Dora and The Lost City of Gold, and served as associate producer of the Universal hit Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs Shaw, where she was responsible for producing the VFX and delivered 1,700 visual effects shots for the film. That is very impressive. She spent 6 years as senior vice president of visual effects at Lionsgate Films, where she worked on the Hunger Games series, Power Rangers, Deepwater Horizon, which, by the way, earned the best visual effects Oscar nomination. Before Lionsgate, she served as a visual effects producer on Tony Scott's Unstoppable and A Deja Vu, Peter Weir's Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, which also got the Oscar nomination, and John Turteltaub's National Treasure series. Kathy is also a member of the Visual Effects Society, the Producers Guild of America, the Editor Guild of, and she currently serves on the Visual Effects Executive Committee branch of the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts and Sciences. Welcome. Please help me to welcome Kathy. Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Hi. Wow, that's a lot.
That's
like, wow. Okay, let's listen. Oh, it's me.
Isn't that amazing? Wow, it's so many things. By the way, thank you for stopping by last Wednesday on Golden Academy. It was amazing. You're doing such a great job there and there. It's a hard work. Thank you for your.
That was a lot of fun. We had the other panelists, Mike Chambers, who does all of Chris Nolan's films, and Joanie Jacobson, who I've worked with my whole career. And Brooke Breton moderated it, and she's a huge champion for opportunity for people who may not have the opportunity, women in film, women in visual effects, and I'm a big proponent of that. All I got out of this was it's YouTube, so Kathy, don't swear. I'm not allowed to drop the F-bomb, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Which can be used in storytelling, right?
Right. Right. Why not? So, would you like to, before we get to the points, would you like to maybe start off with the icebreaker?
Oh, sure. Like what? I think the two questions that everyone wants to know is what movie inspired you to get into visual effects, and or what is your favorite visual effects film of all time? And I have to say two things. There's so many movies, so many great movies, and it depends on the decade. Back in the 90s, it was E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Blade Runner
I
was
know.
so cutting edge. But oh, and then of course I worked on The Abyss, and that was pretty cutting edge with the Water Girl, uh, and Star Wars, of course. But probably of all time might have to be Avatar, the original Avatar. It covered all quadrants. It covered kids liked it, women liked it. Um, it was stereo. Most people are mixed on stereo. That the storytelling and the stereo, it was important. There's a lot of movies that you're like, I don't need to
Yeah.
see it in stereo.
Sure. Sure. Um, finish the sentence. I represent for.
I represent for folks who may not have the opportunity to get into the film business, young women who may be overlooked because of the way females' voices are, and I'd say that's probably big enough right there. And then anyone who is passionate about getting into this business and really wants to work in this business, I probably represent those folks as well.
And the last quick question: when someone tells you to press D for a dragon, your answer is
Okay.
that's it. Okay.
My answer is
Fair enough.
okay. If you
Fair
could
enough.
hit that button to get rid of the blue screen. But in all seriousness, you try to be accommodating. If a director or a showrunner asks you to jump through a hoop, the answer should be, sure, how high do you want me to go? We try to give choices and solutions.
Right.
Oftentimes, what's going on in your head might be, no way, you don't have the money for this. You have $200 in your whole budget. You're not going to be able to do this. But that isn't the answer you give. You try to think of other ways. For example, let's say the shot needs a set extension. You know you don't have the money. You say, hey, could we just blow this up a little in the DI? There you go. And the director or showrunner, they might not be thinking about that and go, well, I guess we can. Let's try it. Or let's just take a look at it.
Mhm.
So
Is
I
it
think,
mhm.
go ahead.
Is it easier to work with a director, or yeah, let's say with a director who understands VFX?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's a fear factor with not just directors, but anybody who is getting into the business, because visual effects are expensive. Every time I talk to a VFX vendor, I don't understand what they're talking about because they're too technical. I
Mm.
don't want to do CGI. I don't like the way it looks. This is a movie. This is a grounded movie. This is a romantic comedy. Those types of things. So it is easier for sure when you work with a director who has a basic understanding of how visual effects work, as opposed to the fear factor of I hate CGI and I'm not gonna. I want a real helicopter and I'm going to shoot with that Black Hawk. And of course, everybody else knows, oh, the expense of getting that Black Hawk for that certain shot. And then you weigh out the differences. Usually what you do in a situation like that is you cost things out. You work closely with a line producer and you know, how much did that cost to acquire or rent that helicopter for the day? How much does it cost to build it in CGI? Because you would build an asset, is what we call them, and then use that asset throughout the film. Oftentimes, you'll find out it's less expensive to do the CGI version.
Right. Um, all right. So how did it all start? How did you get into VFX?
So for me, it's funny. We talked about this on Wednesday, and
Right.
everybody has a different route. The typical route for a VFX producer is somebody landing a job for all your students. The most likely job is a PA, and a PA, which is a production assistant, not a physician's assistant. You can, if you can get on a show where you are either a camera assistant, a director's assistant, a production assistant, visual effects assistant, you get on that show because you're going to learn so much. And especially on set with visual effects, you find that you work very closely with the camera department. For me, I was a photographer all through high school. I always had the camera around my neck. I didn't want to be a wedding photographer at the time. That's, I thought, all you could do. I actually answered an ad for a pioneering CGI company, and it is the company that made The Last Starfighter. And they were all computer scientists. Nobody knew how to handle film. I think I went in there and I said, sure, I can change the film in your projector, not realizing it's a digital projector. But that's how I got started. And I started editing because it was just a natural flow. I was a commercial editor, and I worked for a company. It's no longer in business, but it was in Simi Valley, California, called DreamQuest Images. It's actually where I met the other panelists. And I became a VFX editor because you ended up layering all your pieces of film on a flatbed to figure out what the shot was going to be. You figured out you had to sometimes process that piece of film in black and white that was black and white so you could actually see your creature bipacked on a moviola or a flatbed. I was in the Editors Guild for the first half of my career. Really fun. I loved it. But I did have a family, and I have 3 kids. And a producer told me he had a vendor that needed a producer to write, it was for Pearl Harbor, to produce the effects. And he knew that I could talk to people. And at the time, I wasn't excited about changing from VFX editor to VFX producer because I was afraid it wouldn't be creative enough for me. But I actually realized you can be creative. You're going to set, you're part of those conversations. When you're budgeting visual effects, I'll use National Treasure as an example. I don't know if anyone saw, oh, good, someone saw Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was a big one. That was split between a few different vendors at the time. But switching over to National Treasure, we were shooting on a stage, and we budgeted for the visual effects shots because we knew we had to do all these set extensions when our good guys were looking for the treasure, for the maps. And all of a sudden, before I knew it, there's 6 cameras on the set. It's like, uh-oh, that means a lot more blue screen shots. So you just make note of it and calmly say, oh, okay, we have a bunch of setups here. I think our 12 shots are now 36 shots or 48 shots. But anyway, you realize, you learn how to be creative, how to, like I was saying earlier, should we move the camera closer? Or the opposite. Hey, you can shoot right off the set because we're going to extend this anyway. Don't limit yourself to just what's on the set because we want to have scope. A lot of times visual effects, you're adding scope to the story. So if you're going to do that visual effect anyway, and you're not in the location you want to be in, why not make it a beautiful establishing shot? Because oftentimes that's what's going to help the story before you go in tight. I think I answered the question. That's sort of how photography, CGI, editorial, and then VFX. It was sort of a new position with VFX producing and budgeting and that kind of thing. And then studio was a natural transition because studios started to make these movies and they didn't know what to do with the visual effects. Why are we over budget? Why are we spending all this money on these visual effects? So that's when they started bringing people in like me to read a script, assess how much they think the visual effects will cost, and that way they could budget correctly.
Gotcha. So you've been in the industry for some time. I'm just wondering, 10 years ago, what were the trends that were popular compared to what it is now?
10 years ago. So 10 years ago would have been Hunger Games, Gravity. That would be before we weren't into digital doubles yet, but we were really relying on creatures. I think maybe even Planet of the Apes was 10 years ago. So we started to learn about mocap. I'm trying to think because, blue screen's been around forever from,
That's
the
true.
olden days. But I want to say probably motion capture, but in addition to motion capture, which seems to be an expensive and not always a viable solution, but doing, I call it pseudo mocap, where you put tracking markers on your actor and you still replace him with a CG character. We did that on Hunger Games. I worked on Catching Fire. I didn't work on the first Hunger Games, and I was really lucky because Hunger Games, the first one did so well that I think the second one got more money, and so we were able to do a lot more with the visual effects on Catching Fire. But every arrow shot, safety, safety. Back in the day, you didn't replace swords and arrows and blanks and guns, that kind of thing. So that was also a big thing about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us? Oftentimes we hear the term pipeline. Can you elaborate what pipeline is and how is it being formed?
Pipeline is something to just scare everybody. No, I'm kidding. So we can use the pipeline in everyday conversation, right? It's how do you even lead your daily life? Your pipeline is you get out of bed, you brush your teeth. With visual effects, if you think of it, I have a friend and colleague who described shooting a movie or TV series is like going to the grocery store and you're shopping and you're gathering everything that you need because you can't go back and you want all those things that you need. So I would say a pipeline would be you're setting up, let's just say, whether you're vendor side or I'm your production side producer, is we're ordering the way you're going to work on your visual effects shot. In some cases, we know we have a creature. I put Tomorrow War behind me. That's the white spike. The very first thing we needed was this CG asset. So part of the pipeline was the concept art, the storyboards, and then we started building the model with the vendor. In this case, it was Weta. So the very first part of the pipeline was the CG asset. That's in the modeling department. But then you have your asset, your creature. Great. Now what? You need to rig it. You need to light it. You need to skin it. Rigging is something, to me, the best way to explain it is if you're a puppeteer with a marionette. You need to have all those, they call them nodes, where you're going to move your character. Our white spike had everything moved: eyebrows, eyes, the gums, the tongue, the teeth, even the skin has to move. So you need to put something there. So that person is a rigger. Sometimes there's generalists that can do everything. Lighting and shading is the skin dull? Is it shiny? Is it wet? So that's part of your pipeline. And so then there's the animators who are going to move your creature. There's the compositors. They're going to take your creature plus your background plate that you caught on camera to put it together. Another part of the pipeline and gathering all your information at the supermarket, if you will, is your photogrammetry, your LiDAR scanning, your data. So lots of folks get into this business. Let's say you start as a PA on set, being a data wrangler. It's an interesting job because you go out there with you're photographing everything. You're measuring the lens. You keep a record of what lens you're using, the distance where you think the creature is going to be from the lens or the actor. All this information is collected and we bring it into the vendor. And so that's what I would say is a pipeline. Some vendors they don't do creatures. Some of the newer companies, they're just doing 2D, which is compositing, and all you need is your Nuke software or your After Effects. But the larger companies like the Wetas and the ILMs and they have a robust pipeline. So if I'm doing a movie like the Tomorrow War or anything with creatures, my first call is Weta, because look at what they've done. I mean, from Planet of the Apes, even what they do with digital doubles on Fast 8, they are, and actually Gemini Man, they built Junior, which is a Skydance film, and he was a full CG character. And he, first time I would have to say that something like that was believable.
Gotcha.
Yes, it is a lot of organization. And that'll lead me to the next thing, which I know you're going to ask me what's new with software. And there's this software system called ShotGrid. When I started in the business, well, we just made our own. Every vendor had proprietary software to organize your material. FileMaker is a big one, and it's still used. But ShotGrid I don't know, because I can't see the audience, if folks are learning ShotGrid at LA Film School. If people out there don't know ShotGrid, they should teach themselves about it, because everybody's using it, and it is open-ended, so your vendor can see it. And I know I should be a rep for ShotGrid, but I can see it. I work for Skydance, right? I'm not even on the show anymore. I can log into ShotGrid and I can see the shots, and I can see everyone's comments. And if I see something that makes me nervous, I can write a note. And that is, everybody's talking to each other. And now that we're in a global business, I can see somebody over in, they can be in Montreal or Atlanta or London or Spain, and we can all be working simultaneous.
Right. So it's like a sort of a private Facebook for VFX people.
Yeah, for that particular job, and nobody else
Right.
can get in unless you're on that show.
Right. I wanted to also touch base with you about and ask you about virtual production, pros and cons, and how is it different from traditional green screening and VFX compositing?
Virtual production is another tool set. It got a lot of, at the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like people really, and The Mandalorian, really lopped onto it because, hey, you don't have to leave your home now. We have virtual production. Come to our stage and use it. That's not really what virtual production is for, although it is used for that. We can start with the virtual art department, which is quite useful. It used to be, in the old days, before 2000, you would have an art department and they do drawings and storyboards and concept art, or they might build a model. Let's use Deepwater Horizon as an example. They're going to design that Deepwater Horizon, the oil rig. That information used to not translate to the VFX vendor. Nowadays, since everybody's sharing the same tools, you can use Unreal or any of these platforms, build your asset, and everybody can share that asset, meaning the let's just call it a CG asset for this. Let's say it's a background that we've gone out, whether we've shot it or built it with the previs company, we can take all that information and geometry and we can share it. So the virtual art department is quite useful. Also, oftentimes, and I don't want to speak for Marvel, but I myself have been on a lot of shows where it's all green screen or blue screen, and the director or even your actors are having a hard time visualizing what they're doing. And we don't have to have the headset. It doesn't have to be full on AR, VR, but we could have an iPad and say, hey, look, this is the Atom Project. This is what the room looks like. You are on this platform, you're on a catwalk, and this stuff's happening over here, the reactor's over there, and they can see it. And that way they understand what they're acting to. So the virtual art department is great for that and for visualizing. And then also it gives we were talking on Wednesday about communication. There's so much room for miscommunication. Pictures speak 1,000 words, and hang on. With an imagery or moving imagery, and let's say on the Atom Project, which was Sean Levy, he could look at this iPad, walk, and go, oh, okay, so that's over there. The reactor's there. The door is there. Ryan and I forget the kid's name, but they're going to jump from here to there, and it's helpful. And then that was actually built by the vendor at the time, which was Scanline. And so we're already speaking the same language, and there's no shock when you get into post and say, that's not what it was supposed to look like. The other big thing are the LED walls, the volumes and the walls. That's why I was saying Mandalorian. If it serves the purpose of the story, And if it makes sense, and if the director, the editors, everybody has to embrace it, if it makes sense, and it covers, let's say, I'm going to even say 20 pages of a script, it might be a really good idea, because even if you have to build something in CGI, that's going to have, we used it on Foundation season 1 for the first couple of episodes. The pandemic hit, so we stopped, for various reasons. It's expensive, but the interactive light is phenomenal. You feel like you're there. It's such a great lighting tool. However, it is an expensive venture. You have to be prepared. I would say you previs. It's great for playback. We use it all the time, even on lower budget TV shows, just for driving shots, because you can take a 6-camera array, put it together, get it ready for playback, not even have a full volume, but just maybe have a back panel and a right panel, and you got your driving shots and you have interactive light. So it is nice to have that because you don't have the green reflections and it gives you the reality of the interactive light, because it is hard to reproduce reflections in interactive light in compositing. You can do it now with the new software, but so it has its place. If it's just people, lots of times, if a producer is just excited about using a volume or a wall, it's like there has to be a really good reason, and you have to cover a lot of material, because if it's just a one-off, you're better off doing a blue or a green screen comp, because it's going to be too expensive. I think I answered that.
Yeah, you did. That's great. Thank you so much. It was very informative. If you were to pick one software, just one, what would that be?
One software.
Yeah, for
Well, right now it would be Unreal,
Unreal.
Unreal Engine, because it's taken the game engine, and we all knew it was coming 10 years ago, but it wasn't quite there. It's just it's blended the game world with the filmmaking world, because the rendering is so quick. If I had to take other software, Maya is still, Maya and Studio Max, and if people are learning, if people want to be an artist, it depends if you're interested. Our other panelist the other night is Joanie Jacobson, and she went to architecture school. My cousin's an architect. I was always trying to encourage him to get into CGI, because you can make such great money, and you're not struggling to find houses to build, because everybody shares the same kind of tools in our whole, honestly, in our globally, not just the film business. I'll switch over to LiDAR scanning, which is light image detection and range, something like that. It's like sonar. And I remember, this is on Deja Vu, we hired a guy who was just doing this type of work. He had the equipment, and it was for restoration of buildings. Well, we brought him into the film business because we said, well, we need this, and we need you to LiDAR scan all of these locations, because we're going to rebuild it in CGI. He had a blast, because he was on a film set and getting fed, and we're in New Orleans. And so I guess it's not just one software, but I would have to say Unreal is sort of the now software, and it's driving everything to be more productive.
Okay, so Unreal and probably then Maya, right?
Maya Nuke for compositing.
Okay, Maya Nuke.
Shot Grid for organization and
right,
shading.
right. Great, thank you so much. How would you describe a VFX world, VFX film industry, and VFX in it in 10 years?
In 10 years.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's tough, because you're talking to someone, I've been around, right? I was like, oh, digital's great, but nothing can replace film. So look how wrong I was. I'd say in 10 years, this is a tricky question, because I don't want to say we're going to be lazy filmmakers, because I already think that's happened. When we switched from film cameras to digital cameras, now we just let the thing run forever. And we have avids. Like in the old days, you had to wait for the film to be processed. Now we can work all day and all night, and we have all sorts of room for cloud rendering. That's the other one I left off, was cloud rendering. And then of course, because the software is getting so much better, it changes every year and you keep up on it, that it might be a lot easier. I have this idea that digi-crowds will just be a lot simpler because it keeps getting easier with sprites and libraries that the vendors are building. And we can scan a certain amount of people, but we can make them look so photoreal. It may be that right now the big argument would be, not argument, but discussion is, do you have 200 extras when you need 1,000 extras? Okay, well, how many can we actually have here for you guys to duplicate in CGI? So probably in 10 years, maybe those conversations won't be happening as much. Maybe you won't need as many extras. We still need the real people and we still need the real action, but maybe we'll be able to fill those in better. I bet you we'll have better lighting tools. Right now, we still take our HDRIs with our regular cameras. That will probably get quicker, better, faster, and we won't take, because if any of you guys have been on even your own sets, and you wait for the data wrangler to come out and it's really dark and then they're coming out to take the HDRI so you can get your range of your lighting. And if it's dark, it takes a while because you're going, you're taking a picture every which direction and up. So that's a little stressful. So I think those things could improve. I mean, look, we have mirrorless cameras now. I mean, that's what, in the last 5 years, I want to say.
Got it. Thank you so much. A few times I saw in LinkedIn or somewhere, whatever, people build a CG characters and they would be so real and it would look so real. So that
Like deep fake.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
do you think one day, I don't know, maybe 100 years ahead, it'll happen that CG will replace real actors?
It's really interesting that you asked that. I don't think it's 100 years. I mean, I think it's a lot sooner than that. I have another colleague who works with deepfake. I've seen the work that they do, and it's phenomenal. It's still a little bit low res, so probably in 5 years, it's going to be high resolution. Probably less than that. I do know that this leads to the AI conversation, and a lot of vendors are, they do beauty work and they're using tools to define somebody's face, find the wrinkles that you want. You still need the artist, find, let's say, the wrinkles you're going to fix, teach your AI to copy that, apply it to 100 shots. I do think that there is a world where, sure, we don't necessarily, it's a tricky answer because I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I still have not seen a photo reel, aside from Gemini Man and Junior. I don't know if I've seen a pure CG talking digital double that looks photo real. I think even Junior had some, there was some areas where you're like, there's something I'm not sure about, but I do think it's coming. Now, will actors write into their contracts that they'll probably be, we still need our actors. We love our actors. Come on, you don't want to replace Brad Pitt.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, no.
Yeah, the 2-pack. I just saw somebody, I know the gal who did the 2-pack hologram, which was, gosh, that was like 10, 15 years ago, maybe. But it is pretty amazing what you can do. Oh, I'm looking at some of the chats right now, and with a lot of footage, like Tom Cruise, perfect example. If you've been an actor and you have all these photographs, this goes right into deep fake, and you have photographs from them from 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50, it's so much easier because you can use that photography to inform how that person's going to look, whether, it's, I think there was Michael Douglas, we had Kurt Russell from Guardians of the Galaxy. It is expensive. And do you want, is the actor going to be okay with that? I think it's going to get into probably more legal issues about recreating maybe a person that was once alive. Yeah, the heads of those. I see some weirdness in the virtual. Yes, I do too. In mouths, I notice it in inside the mouths, the teeth, tongues, the wetness. Sometimes it looks black in there. You hear the terms sticky mouth, uncanny valley, um, eyes. I think the talking sometimes they'll over accentuate the acting, and somebody like me is talking like this, and it just doesn't look right. So
Yeah, it's rapidly growing technology is sometimes scary.
where you buy a creature because you don't know if the creature is fake, and even it just depends. There's some movies that I think the creatures are phenomenal, and or lions or recreating elephants, and it is pretty good. Yeah, I was talking about Mark Hamill, and again,
Yeah.
there's so much footage of Mark Hamill. You take somebody, there's less footage. um, we did an approach going back to the Adam Project with Catherine Keener because she played herself 25 years ago, and Lola did. It was more photo centric. They mapped her face and her dialogue onto her double, who also talked. So it was a blend of two real people. It wasn't full CGI. I think that's a good technique too.
Right, and Raul in the chat says, "Love, Death, and Robots" had a really great example of represent like re build, showing the realism of what is the technology is capable of nowadays. I know
Yeah.
did you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you
Yeah,
think?
there were some movies out last year where gosh, there was one that didn't even make it in the Bake Off, and it's an Australian film. I can't even think of the name of it right now. And it was cute, but it looked so real. I
Yeah.
think there was a dog, and um, but yeah, is it coming? It's here.
Hmm.
Is it cost effective? No. Is it better to have an actor? You know, I mean that then you get into budgets and people's availability and rights. I think I know probably myself and my colleagues, have we ever had to work on a person that is no longer with us because maybe they passed during the film, they're not available? And yes, we have, and it's kind of a weird position to be in. But the two pack thing that Janelle Crochet, she did that, I think, at Digital Domain. That was so cutting edge when that came out. It was pretty cool.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thanks. Kathy, I also wanted to ask you, so we're all students and wanted to get employed after our graduation. What are the three top skills for VFX artists would be the good base for their for their endeavors?
So I'd say it depends what field you want to get into. If you want to be on the producing side, the administrative side, I would say, organization skills are great. Follow through, personality, to have a combination of excitement, but not overwhelmingly so. Uh, if it's on the artist side, I would say I think most of you are already working on your own projects, because what happens is if you're going to interview, whether it's at a vendor for, let's just say it's a compositing job or an animation job, everybody wants to see. It's just like any. I remember when I got out of college, it's so long ago, and I had my first job interview. And it's like, okay, so what have you done? And it's like, oh, well, so you want to get experience, and you can, it's not necessarily interning at a place, it's also doing your own projects, whether it's artwork. There's so many jobs within the business. It's funny because I tease sometimes because pre-visualization is such a creative part of the business, because what happens is you especially for a visual effects film, you have, let's say you hire a storyboard artist. If you can draw, storyboarding is great, concept design because concept work. But then a previs supervisor will actually take the words off the script page, maybe they have boards or not, and they design the sequence, and they're actually setting up the cameras. And so often I see that directors, whether they plan to or not, will follow the previs. So that's another field. So I would just say, creating, whether it's a short, you guys all work together, with you collaborate on each other's film projects. I would do all of those so you have something that you can share when you go to that job interview. And it does depend. If you're an artist, then it would be something that applies to the job that you're interviewing for. I hired a guy when went to Australia, and he sent me his resume, and it was part actor, part, I think it was, he was an assistant data wrangler. And I was like, so the acting part, like, what do you want me to do with that? Maybe you should take that off your resume.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I have a quick icebreaker here. Same as well as the one that it looked like there was a beginning, but I am a VFX person because finish.
Is this for me?
Yeah.
I am a VFX person because I love art. I love technology. I love storytelling. I can do all of those things with my job.
That's great. I empower other creatives by
teaching them what I know, by being candid about how they should operate. I try to encourage people to ask questions. No question is too stupid. Lots of times folks don't ask questions and they don't understand what they're supposed to do, and then they could go off a different path. So I encourage people to ask questions. Going back to getting into the business, I do encourage all the students. Emailing is a really good thing because so many people in my position, they're busy and they're on the phone, or they're on a Zoom, or they're in a meeting, or they're looking at shots. And so they may not be able to pick up the phone, but they will look at the emails. If you don't get an email back within a week, I would email again, because sometimes for me, if I don't answer an email right away, it's gone. It's not because I'm ignoring you. It's just because I got another 300 emails. So, but no, I want everybody who, I love this business, and it's been really so much fun because I feel like I've gotten to do a little bit of everything in it. And being in VFX, you get to manage the cameras, and you get to be on set, and you get to be in the prep and the development. And then you're probably one of the first people there and the last ones to leave, meaning prep to final delivery. Everybody else is wrapping when you're done with photography, and we may have another 32 weeks. Director's cut. Great directors will invite their crew in, whether you're a production assistant or a VFX supervisor, to watch the movie. What do you think? I mean, because I think all of us are in this because we love movies.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Before we get to QA, question is, when you delivered 1,700 visual effects shots for the film, what did it feel like?
Okay, so I'm so glad you asked that, because we probably had 2,000 shots.
Oh my God.
Because so many get cut. And so what happens, as you guys know, scripts are constantly being written in prep, while you're shooting, and in post. And so we had a lot of shots that hit the cutting room floor. For example, on Hobbs and Shaw, they, gosh, how do I say this? You had Idris Elba, you had The Rock, and you had Jason Statham. They're all maybe close to 50 or something like that, fighting on the back of a truck. And then you get the sequence back and you're like, this isn't as exciting as I thought of. So you end up recutting it because you want it to be exciting. That was very rewarding because we had a 24-week post. This is for Universal. It was intense. We did work 7-day weeks. I was quite proud of the work for the amount of time that we had. And I feel like we delivered a very fun, it's not terribly realistic. I mean, we had the daisy chain off the cliff edges, But it was very rewarding. And that job, I was in the trenches. I wasn't on the executive side. I was one of those people who got there in the morning and just watch shots all day, communicate to the vendors. Is the director happy? Is the producer happy? Is the studio happy? But it's rewarding. It's probably the similar feeling when somebody is on a stage and they finish the play and everybody claps at the end. You're worn out, but in a good way.
Thank you. And for Top Gun Maverick, what was the
Holy
big?
moly. Okay, so Top Gun Maverick, this is going to be a disappointment for all of you guys. Not really. I joined Skydance in 2019, and that movie was really already in the can. And all I wanted was to see that movie because I even remember the first Top Gun. That being a part of Skydance and the feeling that everybody had when that movie came out and did so well. I went and saw it in the theater, and I hadn't been back in the theater for a while. And what a great film! It's everything a movie should be. And I have to say that all the folks that I work with, they all congratulated even me. And I was like, well, I didn't work on it. I'm like, yeah, but you're part of Skydance, so congratulations. And it's but I what a movie. And that movie, of course, I know how they did it, and so much of it was in camera. And they, I don't know if people know, but they mounted those cameras on the wings of those airplanes. Tom Cruise got all of those, but they weren't flying the planes, but they were in the planes, and they had to operate. They had to hit the go button on those cameras, and you can tell. I mean, sure, there's CGI, but you can tell it is so cool. And then it's got a love story. It's a good movie.
Oh, thank you thank you for sharing your experience. It's very, very fascinating and important to us to hear all of that.
And
So
I will say with Skydance is just I am so proud of the company I work for. Is they had I think the beginning of the year Jack Reacher, which I worked on Reacher, and then we had the Atom Project, and then we had Top Gun, and Foundation. I can't forget Foundation. We won the VES award, and it's nominated for an Emmy for visual effects. So I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and I work for a company that's they are supportive, they are diverse, and they embrace all types of stories. So I really am excited about that.
thank you, thank you. By the way, one of our grad from LA Film School had worked on the Top Gun Maverick. His name is Kevin Mong. He was a 3D scan artist or something like that. So yeah. I know
That's the other thing. You guys, I watch all the credits. Like I go to the movies, and I'm one of those last people in the theater when you see
right.
all the vendors come up and everybody's names are stacked, and you're just trying to find your name. And I am that's another proponent. I want if you work on a film, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure you get your name on that credit.
Right. I do the same. I usually stay until the last goodbye there, to make sure I got everything.
Because there might be an Easter egg too.
Right? Yeah, it might be something that you never expect. But this was an official and main part of our conversation. Thank you so much, Kathy. We are officially creeping into the Q&A section, and we have a question from Aurora, and she is watching us from YouTube. She's asking about Unreal Engine. I'm trying to understand it. What's the best way to make assets for Unreal? Question mark. Would it be Maya, or is there a pipeline to create assets for Unreal?
That's a great question. I would say, God, I'm probably not the best person to answer that. My experience, I think you can use Studio Max or Maya. I don't think I think the actual software is not, they're agnostic. But I would probably, I might as well say, hey, go to YouTube and watch some before and afters. But it is, there's I think it's open-ended. It's really about taking the asset and incorporating it into their render, into their engine. And I do think it doesn't really matter, and I could be wrong. And if you find out the answer, email and let me know. But I think they're pretty agnostic about what software you use to build your asset.
Gotcha. What if, let's say, I want to become a vendor for Skydance? What do I need to do?
You need to shoot me an email, send me your reel.
Mhm.
If it's a particular show that we're talking about, um, let's say I am looking for, let's not use creatures, let's do something else. I am going to shoot this movie in Vancouver for San Francisco. You have a great map painting reel, environment reel, and you show me all these environments that you have. It doesn't have to be San Francisco. And you would say, hey, I just want to talk to you about it. I'm more likely to take the meeting with you, and I'm more interested in your artists than your AI or your software. That is, I think I probably speak for others too, because I think the software is super exciting, but also it's the people that are working in our partnership that care about the work. That's really important too. So if I know you have this particular artist that's working for you, and that might be, oh, you have Rocco Joffrey, I want to use him, I've seen his artwork. So I would also tell me who you have at your facility, and who you're intending to work with, have put on my particular project.
Got it. Got it. We are getting few more questions here. Uh, do you have any good stories about unusual techniques one of
Yes,
the
I
teams
do.
performs?
I do. It's so funny that you asked that, and I just thought of it.
That
I
was from Jonathan. I'm sorry, Jonathan Jennings. Yeah.
Jonathan Jennings. So I worked on a very low budget film, for this. I think it was for Lionsgate, and basically it was a woman getting hit by a car. They put her on wires, and they rolled the car in, and she kind of floated up, and it it never looked right. The vendor I was using kept putting it together and playing with the speed on both elements. We had two pieces, and finally, the guy is a friend of mine. He got a rented a car that looked like the car we were using, had his brother stand in front of the car, and they filmed it themselves. And they didn't. Then they took pieces of it and put it in the shot that we were working with, and to help make the shot look more real. And honestly, I just thought that was so clever that I started working with that vendor, because it was a down and dirty, I'm a filmmaker approach. You can use every tool in the book and keep working on your CGI and sit in front of your monitor. And this guy was like, no, 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 wait, let's get out there and let's shoot this. And, I think that might be one of my favorite stories. Let's see. I'm trying to think if I have other ones. I do have a Jim Cameron story. I wonder if I'm allowed to tell this. This was on the Abyss, and he didn't like the map paintings. True. So he didn't like the map paintings for the, I think it was a deep swell. And these are back in the day when they were big glass map paintings. And he actually came in to the company I worked for, went downstairs, grabbed the airbrush, and painted on the map painting and fixed it. And I just was like, wow, this guy can do everything. So that's another one of my favorite stories, because it was true and it happened and I saw it.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your answers. Kevin Clark, what specific career pathway should a student be focused into work for you at Skydance?
Oh, that's a good one. I got really lucky because I just hired a gal who, she did not want to get into visual effects. She wants to be a director, and then I started. So she was temping for me, and she started coming to my meetings, and she realized, oh wow, I'm going to learn a lot about physical production, because there's so much. How we're going to shoot the car wash. I would say probably the best thing to do is to get experience first, because we are on the studio side, you're not necessarily boots on the ground. And I think when you're still young and trying to figure out what direction you want to go, you might want to, even if it's a production assistant job, if you can get yourself on the set whether it's a feature film or a TV series, you get to travel, but you really get to see what all the departments do. And also it makes you more, a little more, I want to say, useful in a way that you understand how films are being made, physical production. It depends if you want to get in development, that's something else. But uh, and being organized. If you're like, I don't want to do that, but I do want to work in a studio, then I would say uh, uh, beefing up your Excel skills, organization, follow through. Uh, and that probably goes to emailing and sending me your resume and, seeing, because if a position opens up and I think you're really hungry and you're going to help me, uh, and the people who I work with, sometimes they just have to deal with my calendar, which is crazy. But then I also like to invite them to all my meetings when I'm with a showrunner and we're talking about shots and how we're going to do it and how can we do it for less money, or what, you know, does the if it's a digital double, how can we get away with not doing a face replacement? Oftentimes, a lot of what we do is trying to figure out how not to do a visual effects shot. That's part of the skill set too, because if you're a director, you don't want to hire someone who's going to go, oh, I can do this in CGI. You don't want that. You want to save your budget. And if you have someone who's like, we don't have to do it in CGI. How about, I'll give you another quick example on a film. I can't name the film because we're working on it right now, but instead of we use stunt people for a lot of what we do. And then you think, okay, well, now I'm going to do a face replacement. Well, sometimes you can just have your actor or actress walk through slowly what the stunty person just did and slowly roll over. And then you can maybe track their face in from the 2D plate. And so if you're, just getting that skill set of being able to offer ideas.
Got it. Thank you so much. I think we have time for one more question. Was Gemini Man CGI all the way, or was it just him doing more takes?
It was CGI. It was CGI. It was shot at 120 frames per second at 4K. And it's an interesting question because if I could name a more expensive approach, I can't because it was CGI all the way. And part of the conversation is, well, why didn't they cast his son, Will Smith's son? He kind of looks like him, and he could have been Junior. But I think with Ang Lee, I don't know him, but he's so cutting edge. You guys all probably saw Life of Pi, another great movie. How about that tiger? It was full on CGI. Yeah, it was a great movie. It really was. Good book too.
Got it. What would be your ultimate message to all students that are about to embark on their journey?
I would say don't lose faith, because I remember when I was trying to get in the business, and I remember just taking a lot of different jobs that were okay. I would say you might get a particular job that you don't necessarily, it's not the path you want. I would try it, do it well, even if it's a parallel path, because a lot of what we do and how we hire people are on references. And let's say it's not the job you want, but you're good at it and you're organized and you have a good personality, then whoever you worked for is going to call me and say, Eric was amazing. He really just wants to do what you do and be in visual effects and learn that, and I would hire him. So a lot of it is word of mouth. Everything is word of mouth. So don't shut doors. Keep all your doors open.
Gotcha. Actually, there's one more. The last question just came in. It seems like very desperate, but does Skydance have interest in producing new animated IPs or?
Oh, yeah. So Skydance, I work for Skydance Media, which is TV and features. We also have Skydance Animation, and we have Skydance Interactive, which covers two division. I want to say our new media and interactive. And we also have a sports division. Skydance is very, like I said, it's diverse. It's so diverse. We have so much content that they look at. We don't always make it, right? Because you have to fit a box. But I would say probably you would reach out to the animation division. Skydance has a division in LA and in Spain. And can we do a Gemini screening? Oh, let's find out. I'll find out. Maybe we could here. I probably I don't know if we can, but it'd be great to get into IMAX and see if we could see it at 120 frames per second. I saw it at 60 frames per second because the theater that was 120 frames per second wasn't available. So
Right.
I'll see if we can do that, Kevin.
Well, okay. I guess this is gonna make it, and we're gonna call it a day. Thank you, everyone. Again, we appreciate your time. I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. I hope Kathy, you enjoyed as well with us. I wanted to also say a thank you to our partners, our sponsors, Better Youth and Skydance. Thank you so much. For the students that were part of this, please check out our newsletters and calendar, school calendar. You'll see more events like this. Again, Kathy, thank you so much.
Bye, thank you.
Great having you. Yeah. And I hope everybody enjoyed the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.